a carrier strike group operating 1,200 kilometers from shore. A missile launched at Mach 10. Flight time was under 10 minutes. Now compress that distance to 800 kilometers. The reaction window shrinks by several minutes. In modern naval warfare, minutes are structural. Distance is no longer geography, it is a weapon. For most of the 20th century, naval power was measured by the tonnage of fleets. Aircraft carriers, guided missile destroyers, and nuclear submarines formed the backbone of blue water navies designed to project force across oceans. The logic was straightforward. Greater displacement and more carrier decks meant more aircraft, more firepower, and a longer reach. This calculus shaped United States maritime doctrine for decades, favoring open ocean maneuver and deep water operations, far from hostile coastlines. The geography of East Asia, however, imposes constraints that legacy models do not address. The first island chain stretches from the Japanese archipelago through Taiwan and the Philippines, forming a barrier less than 200 kilometers from the Chinese mainland at its closest point. The Taiwan Strait narrows to 130 kilometers at its minimum, placing Taiwan well within range of shore-based missiles and air power. To the east, the Philippine Sea offers deeper water, but even there, United States carrier strike groups typically operate between 800 and 1,500 kilometers from the coast, depending on the threat environment and mission profile. Unlike the open Atlantic or Pacific, this region is defined by chokepoints and compressed maneuver space. The Luzon Strait, for instance, is only about 250 kilometers wide, funneling naval movement between Taiwan and the Philippines. In the South China Sea, distances from the mainland to the Spratly Islands or Scarborough Shoal range from 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers, keeping even distant outposts within missile reach. These geographic realities erode the traditional assumptions of standoff and safe maneuver. When the distance from a missile base in Fujian province to the western coast of Taiwan is less than 180 kilometers, and the gap from the mainland to the likely operating area of a United States carrier is under 1,200 kilometers, the window for detection, decision, and response narrows sharply. This is the distance that now defines naval operations in the Western Pacific. The map itself becomes a force multiplier, compressing timelines and challenging the logic of legacy blue water doctrine. Geometry, range, and placement shape not only where fleets can operate, but how much time leaders and commanders have to perceive threats and act. Missile technology has fundamentally redefined the boundaries of naval engagement in the Western Pacific. The introduction of land-based anti-ship ballistic missiles like DF-21D and DF-26, as well as ship-launched cruise missiles such as YJ-18, has turned geographic distance into a direct function of reaction time. The DF-21D, often described as a carrier killer, has a range of approximately 1,500 kilometers. Its solid fuel rocket motor and ballistic trajectory enable it to cover 1,200 kilometers in about 10 to 12 minutes, with terminal speeds exceeding Mach 10. The DF-26 extends this envelope to roughly 4,000 kilometers, putting U.S. carrier operating areas in the Philippine Sea and beyond within reach, with flight times to 1,500 kilometers estimated at 12 to 15 minutes and up to 25 minutes at maximum range. Ship-based systems, particularly the YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missile, further compress the engagement window. Fired from platforms like the Type 055 Renhai-class destroyer, the YJ-18 has an operational range of up to 540 kilometers. It cruises at subsonic speed before accelerating to over Mach 3 in its terminal phase. At maximum range, the YJ-18 reaches its target in roughly 20 minutes, but at 400 kilometers flight time drops to about 10 to 12 minutes. The Type 055 itself is configured with 112 vertical launch system cells, enabling large-scale Salvo launches that can saturate defensive layers. To illustrate the math, consider a U.S. carrier group detected at 1,200 kilometers from the Chinese coast. A DF-21D launched from a mobile transporter erector launcher, would impact in as little as 10 minutes. This time window includes the entire sequence from detection to impact. It leaves only minutes for the defender to confirm the threat, identify the missile trajectory, and launch interceptors. At shorter distances, such as 500 kilometers, YJ-18 or similar missiles can cut this reaction time to under 10 minutes, especially when launched from forward-deployed surface combatants like the Type 055. The result is a decision environment where every kilometer closer to the mainland translates directly into less time for detection, classification, and response. Engagement math turns distance into a structural constraint, shaping not only where fleets can operate, but how quickly they must act under threat. Every step in the modern naval kill chain — find, fix, track, target, engage, assess — depends on time. As engagement distances shrink within the first island chain, each link in this chain is compressed. Detection starts with persistent sensors, satellites, over-the-horizon radar, and unmanned aerial vehicles. These assets can queue on a carrier strike group within 1 to 3 minutes of entering a contested zone. Once a target is fixed and classified, command and control nodes must process the data, validate it, and authorize a response. Integrated command systems, now standard in the People's Liberation Army, PLA, reduce this decision loop from what used to be an hour or more to just a few minutes. The launch phase follows almost immediately. For a DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missile targeting a ship 1,200 kilometers away, flight time averages 10 to 12 minutes. At 800 kilometers, that window drops to around 7 minutes. For cruise missiles like the YJ-18, launched from a Type 055 destroyer at 500 kilometers, the time from launch to terminal phase is about 10 to 12 minutes. During this interval, the defending fleet must detect the inbound threat, classify the missile type, and decide on a response. Defensive interceptors such as the SM-6, with a maximum range of approximately 370 kilometers and an engagement window of 4 to 7 minutes, are tasked with intercepting targets that may be maneuvering at hypersonic speeds. Layered defense networks, combining Aegis-equipped ships, E-2D Hawkeye early warning aircraft, and surface-to-air missiles, are designed to handle single or small numbers of threats. But when multiple missiles are launched in a coordinated salvo, the time available for each layer to react is compressed even further. A 3-minute delay in the kill chain, whether from sensor lag or command friction, can reduce the defender's margin by up to 30%. This loss translates into fewer intercept attempts, higher risk of saturation, and increased vulnerability to follow-on attacks. In a scenario where seconds count, distance acts as a structural constraint, shaping every tactical and operational decision. The kill chain is no longer a sequence with comfortable buffers. It is a race against physics, limited by the speed of detection, communication, and interception across a tightly layered A2AD architecture, meaning anti-access and area denial. A saturation attack forces a defender to confront the hard economics of missile warfare. Each SM-3 or SM-6 interceptor aboard an Aegis-equipped destroyer or cruiser costs between $4 million and $20 million per unit, depending on the variant and procurement batch. By contrast, an offensive anti-ship missile such as the YJ-18 or DF-21D is estimated at $1 million to $5 million per round, with mass production and simplified guidance systems driving down unit costs. A single Type 055 Renhai-class destroyer, equipped with 112 vertical launch cells, can launch a salvo of 20 or more anti-ship missiles in rapid succession. When combined with land-based missile brigades and supporting platforms, the number of inbound threats can quickly exceed the defender's magazine depth within minutes. The cost exchange imbalance becomes clear under saturation. For every incoming missile, the defending ship must fire at least one, often two, interceptors to ensure a high probability of kill. Facing a 20-missile salvo, a U.S. warship may expend $80 million to $400 million in interceptors to counter an attack that costs the attacker less than half that amount. If the engagement escalates to 50 or 100 inbound missiles, the defender's stockpile is rapidly depleted, forcing hard choices about which threats to engage and when to conserve ammunition for follow-on waves. Reloading at sea is not an option. Once the magazine is empty, the ship must withdraw to resupply, ceding control of the contested zone. Proximity matters inside the 200-kilometer band from the Chinese coast because the calculus extends beyond missiles. China deploys a large maritime militia and Coast Guard fleet, operating hundreds of vessels in the South China Sea and near the Taiwan Strait. These ships are not armed for high-end combat, but their persistent presence creates constant pressure on adversaries. By swarming disputed areas or shadowing foreign naval vessels, militia and Coast Guard units can trigger political and operational responses on short notice. The proximity of these forces compresses the decision window for escalation. Commanders may have only minutes to respond to a ramming incident or a blockade, with little time for higher-level consultation. This gray zone activity exploits the same geometry as missile threats. The closer the contact, the less time available to deliberate, which raises the risk of rapid escalation or miscalculation. In this environment, distance is not just a matter of physics or geography. It is a structural variable that multiplies economic strain, compresses political decision timelines, and forces defenders to operate under constant time pressure. The combination of saturation attack potential, cost asymmetry, and persistent gray zone presence means that every kilometer closer to the Chinese coast increases both the tempo and the risk of naval operations. In today's Western Pacific, a carrier group at 900 kilometers faces DF-21D and DF-26 missile windows that are measured in minutes, not hours. Every kilometer lost to adversary range compresses the timeline for sensor queuing, decision, and intercept. Distance now governs risk, and the clock runs faster with every advance.